it's Adriana Monique Alvarez joining you. I am the founder of Alma Publishing, and we are back with more of the So Much More stories. And I am super excited to welcome Heather today. So, Heather, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, where in the world are you joining us from?
I am located in Ontario, Canada, just about 45 minutes northeast of Toronto.
Okay, cool. I've have two Canadians today. So cool. Asha is also in Canada. So I want to remind everyone, we're here doing this because the sacred art of storytelling, it's nearly lost. I mean, we don't live in big communities anymore. We don't gather around the fire. Most people don't gather around a table to eat a meal, and yet we each have a very important story to tell. So, Heather, you're going to share your story today. But first, I want to ask you, what do most people know you as?
Most people know me as a trauma therapist or an educator or a teacher because those are the things that I do or have done professionally.
And yet, I know that you are so much more. Is there anyone that you would like to dedicate this story to?
I would like to dedicate this story to my Dominican family.
Okay, beautiful. I'm going to let you share your story.
So thank you so much again for having me here. And it was interesting for me to think about, like, what's a wonderful story that I want to share, because we all have many stories actually. So it was an interesting exercise to try and think about it. And so what I did actually want to share is something that was really transformational for me in my life. So as a lot of people know in my professional work, and certainly in my books, I am a survivor of an abusive relationship. And part of my healing process, or part of the journey that I went on after exiting that toxic relationship, was I decided to take some time off of work and move to a developing country to do some volunteer work. And when I came up with this idea initially, everybody thought I was crazy because I was going to go by myself and going to be doing this by myself in a country where people don't really speak English. And I was going to be doing work in an area that is very non-touristy. And there was just something about getting away, and not only getting away and changing my environment, that felt really important as part of my healing after surviving this abusive relationship that I had been in for many years. It was about doing something that felt really meaningful. And so I wanted to do some volunteering. And so my goal, was to go there and to help others. And so that would allow me the opportunity to just dive into something new and focus on something that was positive. And so that was kind of my goal, and I had discussed it with my therapist, and she's like, yeah, this is a great idea. And so off I went, and I moved to a rural area of the Dominican Republic. And I actually first stayed in homes of local Dominican families. And when I showed up there, I'll never forget the first night that I was sitting in the kitchen, because, of course, they are very hospitable and they love to cook and feed you. And so I remember sitting at the table, and I had this mountain of food in front of me that was, prepared just for me. And there was no way that one human could consume all of this food. And their tradition is not to eat with you. As the guest, you are served and you eat, like you eat separately from them, which was not something culturally that I was aware of before I went. And I remember sitting there, and it was a Saturday night, and there were people out in the street walking around, and it's very communal and very open, much different than how things are, in most Canadian towns and cities. And everybody knows everybody, and everyone's walking into other people's houses. And so people were screaming to the family members from outside, and then random people came into the house, and everybody was having this very animated conversation, and they all sounded like they were screaming at each other. And I'm sitting at the table with my knife and fork in front of this mountain of food going, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing here? Like, what did I get myself into? And I just remember feeling very like, I might be in over my head here in that moment. But as it turned out, it was a very positive experience to live with that family. And then later, I ended up renting a little apartment above another family's home. And so I had the privilege of getting to know these amazing humans who opened their doors to a complete stranger from another country without any questions asked. And they just treated me as one of their own and took me in as one of their family. And the warmth and the love and the just unconditional acceptance that I was given by these strangers was so incredibly healing. And it was so not at all what I was expecting, because I was expecting to go and do this volunteer work. And I traveled around to sugarcane villages and schools locally around in the area, because this was an area where sugarcane is cultivated. And the working conditions of those people who cut the sugar and live in these remote villages it's really quite poor. And so they do have these schools built in the villages, though. And so I would go around to teach in various schools, and I used to teach English and French classes because I was a French teacher as well in Canada. And then I would offer mentoring for the teachers in the evenings on how to do second language instruction, because they never got taught how to do that. And they found teaching French especially to be very stressful. And so that was sort of the work that I was doing. And in doing this work, where I had this plan of, giving back and focusing on something positive that I could do for others, what I received back from my experience, not only in living with these families and getting to know, the neighbors and the people in the community, but also my experience with the children and the people of these villages who really have nothing. Like the poverty there is extreme. Many of the people who live in those villages are from Haiti. And so the communities are extremely impoverished, with no running water and no electricity and, no access to basic services. And they get rained out and isolated during hurricane season and all of those things. And so it was just so incredibly heartwarming for me to be able to go into these villages with people who have nothing, teach these classes. And I had students, like, they would see me coming and they would run out of the school and like race across the yard and like walk me to the classroom and whatever. They were so excited. And it was just so heartwarming and healing for me to be a part of something that seemed so basic for us, access to education, clean water, a place to sleep that has lights. And these people don't have any of that. And when you give them something like access to clean water or new school supplies, or provide the teachers with help on how to teach the children, the gratitude for these basic things that you get back is, again, something I just so wasn't expecting. And so these kids are so grateful for the opportunity to go to school. They're grateful for, anything that you give them that is, school supplies related. And the teachers are so incredibly happy to be given not only a break, but be given tools that allows them to help the children to learn more efficiently in those languages. And then, outside of that, I'm being, taken in and treated as though I have known these wonderful people for my entire life. And so I went there with this goal of giving to heal. And what they gave to me, I believe, is so much more than what I was able to give to them. And so my kind of moral of my story, or my message of this story, is that when you decide to do something for someone else, or to give something outside of yourself, especially in a time when you're suffering and hurting, what you get back from that is tenfold what you give out.
I love this story, Heather. And I'm over here laughing because I was a volunteer in my 20s. So many of these things, like I remember my first meal at someone else's house. and feeling a similar thing like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Uh, so good and so true. We often think that we are there to help them, and they end up giving so much back. Mm.
Yeah, and it's just for them it's nothing, but for me it felt like that experience it totally changed the trajectory of my life because I came back with um this growth and this depth of life experience and these relationships with people who didn't exist in my world before, and it actually turned me on a path of further and bigger humanitarian projects and humanitarian work in that area. And then, yeah, like I ended up moving there and I lived there for almost 2 years. And I was working through Rotary International, and we ended up doing a 5-year development project there in one of the villages where I used to teach. And
Mm.
so it really has created this whole new chapter and this new part of my life that I hold so dear, that is so incredibly important to me, that I never would have otherwise had it not been for my decision to take a chance, after my trauma and go do something else for someone else.
And I might add, it wasn't a good idea in other people's eyes, and you still followed your own heart.
They thought I was insane to go because I was, a single woman, newly out of this, terrible relationship and moving to another country where, the language, this is my third language, where I didn't have any connections or know anyone. And it was all just done kind of on faith of, through Rotary and other connections that existed in that country where I had things set up for myself. And then off I went. So yeah,
Yeah,
initially when I told people, they're like, that seems a little extreme, but if I could go back and choose to not do it, I absolutely would go back. I would choose to go every time.
I love it. My kind of woman. Yeah. Heather, where else would you like to share your story? Are you open to podcasts or summits or conferences?
I would love to share my story with anyone in any setting, in any context where it could be helpful. And like I said, there were lots of stories that I, could have chosen, but I just wanted to share this one because it was a really huge part of my healing. And for people who are also suffering and going through a difficult time, or processing through traumatic events, I wanted to share this because it is something that does bring the joy back into your life. And so for whoever you think might need to hear a story about that, I would love to speak in any kind of forum that you think would be helpful.
Beautiful. And where can people connect with you to learn more about you?
So they can actually find me very easily on my website. So my website is heatherjkent.com. So it's just my name, my middle initial. So heatherjkent.com. And on my website, there's information about the work that I do and the trauma healing work that I do. You can download my books for free. They're both resources there that are available for folks if they're interested. And should people decide that they want to reach out and connect with me, there's a link on my website as well to book a free, like a consultation call. And there are also links to all of my social media, and you can connect with me that way as well. And everything is just available on my website.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being willing to share your story and go on the adventure.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I want to remind everyone, if you would like to share your story in our next book, The Younger Self Letters, we're looking for those who have achieved success, but also have a heart to support those who are coming behind them and to join a year-long referral circle. So until next time, here's to saying yes to the adventure. Who knows what gifts it may hold. Thank you, Heather.